the day the Council witnessed humanity's polite mode turn off in real time. Ambassador Weakness.The of the Galactic Council shifted uncomfortably in his seat, watching the human representative with a mixture of fascination and growing unease. The council chambers, normally filled with the quiet murmurs of 17 different species discussing interstellar politics, had fallen eerily silent. All 42 eyes in the room, belonging to various delegates with anywhere from 2 to 8 visual organs each, were fixed on Ambassador Penelope Harper of Earth. "So you are telling me," Harper said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, "that after 8 months of negotiations, after we provided your council with access to our quantum communication technology, after we helped defend your Proxima colonies from the Void Swarm, you have decided humanity isn't mature enough for full membership?" Weakness.The cleared all 3 of his throats. The temperature regulators in his exosuit seemed to be malfunctioning, because sweat was forming along his blue-scaled neck. Something about Harper's tone made his ancestral warning instincts fire like crazy. "Ambassador Harper," he began cautiously, "the Council appreciates Earth's contributions. Truly we do. But certain behavioral patterns observed among humans have raised concerns." Council leader Zar Quinn, an imposing figure with 4 arms and skin that shimmered like oil on water, leaned forward. "Perhaps if you could help us understand why your species seems to vacillate between extreme politeness and alarming aggression. Our cultural observers report that humans can switch between these states with disturbing rapidity." Harper nodded pleasantly, straightening her formal diplomatic uniform. "I see. And which observations led to this conclusion?" The delegate Mistook, a round, gelatinous being from the methane oceans of Callisto Prime, wobbled forward. 3 solar cycles ago, a human trade representative named Marcus Weber was negotiating with Goraxis merchants. When they attempted to raise prices mid-agreement, he smiled, excused himself, went into another room, and punched a wall with such force he fractured several phalanges in his hand. He then returned, still smiling, and continued negotiations as if nothing had happened. "That's just Marcus," Harper said with a light laugh. "He has anger management issues. We all find it quite embarrassing." "But it's not just Marcus Weber," interjected Delegate Krillvox, her antennae twitching nervously. "Our psychological profile of your species indicates you all possess this capability for contained rage. You bottle emotions in a way no other sentient species does. It's unsettling." Harper's smile remained perfectly in place, but Weakness.The noticed her right hand tighten slightly around her datapad. His third heart began beating faster. In his 700 years as a diplomat, he'd learned to spot danger signs across dozens of species. Something was happening here. "Ambassador," Council leader Zar Quinn continued, oblivious to the warning signals Weakness.The was picking up. "We have reviewed footage from your Earth entertainment archives. Your species seems to glorify this transition from civility to violence. You call it snapping, or losing it, or going off. We find it deeply concerning that your diplomatic corps might be operating under a similar restraint that could fail." Harper tilted her head slightly. "So you are denying our membership application because humans get angry sometimes?" "Not precisely," Zar Quinn said. "We are denying it because you hide your anger behind politeness until it explodes. The Council requires transparent emotional communication from all member species." "I see," Harper said, nodding thoughtfully. "And this decision is final?" "The Council has voted," Zar Quinn confirmed. 37 in favor of delay, 5 against. "We recommend humanity spend another 50 years developing emotional regulation before reapplying." Harper placed her data pan with exquisite care. 50 years, she repeated. "A mere blink in cosmic terms," Zar Quinn said magnanimously. "Your species is young. Use this time wisely." Weakness.The watched in growing alarm as Harper's breathing pattern subtly changed. Her pupils dilated slightly. These were the tiny indicators his species had evolved to detect before a predator attacked. He tried to catch Czar Quinn's eye to signal caution, but the council leader was already turning to the next agenda item. If we could now move on to the matter of resource allocation in the Orion sector. No, Harper's voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the chamber like a plasma blade. Czar Quinn blinked all 6 eyes in surprise. I beg your pardon? I said no. Harper stood, smoothing down her uniform. We are not moving on. We are going to revisit this decision right now. The faintest murmur rippled through the chamber. No one interrupted council proceedings. It simply wasn't done. Ambassador Harper, Czar Quinn said sternly, perhaps this reaction demonstrates precisely the emotional volatility we are concerned about. Harper smiled, and this time the expression sent a chill through Vex Tora's exosuit. Oh, I'm being extremely polite right now, Council Leader. Trust me. What you are seeing is still very much humanity's diplomatic face. Then we appreciate your restraint, Czar Quinn said dismissively, but the matter is closed for now. Harper's smile didn't falter. Let me explain something about humans that your cultural observers missed. We don't hide our anger because we are deceptive. We hide it because we are trying to be kind to you. The chamber fell silent again. Even the environmental system seemed to quiet down. But you see, Harper continued, picking up her datapad and casually scrolling through it, humans learned long ago that our full emotional range tends to overwhelm other species. So we developed what we internally call polite mode. It's our way of making the rest of you comfortable. Vex Tora felt a primal alarm bell ringing in his mind. Perhaps we should call a brief recess. No recess, Harper said pleasantly. I think it's time the Council saw what happens when humanity's polite mode gets switched off. Especially since you have just made a decision that affects the future of 11 billion humans without bothering to understand us first. She tapped her datapad. On the massive view screen behind her, images began to appear, historical footage of human conflicts, sports competitions, heated political debates. This is humanity when we stop being polite, she said. We built civilizations, waged wars, split atoms, and reached the stars, all while carrying emotions inside us that would shatter most of your species' minds. Vex Tora noticed her hands were perfectly steady now. The tremor of contained anger was gone, replaced by something far more frightening, focused intensity. Ambassador, Czar Quinn said, raising his upper arms in a placating gesture, this display is unnecessary. Oh, I think it's very necessary, Harper replied. Because in about 5 minutes I'm going to stop being polite myself. And then we are going to have a very different kind of conversation about humanity's place in this council. The chamber erupted in alarmed chatter. Vex Tora looked at his fellow delegates, trying to gauge if anyone else understood the gravity of what was happening. They were about to witness something unprecedented, a human diplomat deliberately disengaging their emotional safeguards. And despite his fear, Vex Tora couldn't help but feel a flicker of curiosity. What exactly would happen when Ambassador Harper's polite mode finally turned off? The council chamber's environmental systems struggled to keep up with the rising tension. Several delegates had activated personal comfort fields, shimmering bubbles of altered atmosphere that helped manage their anxiety. Vex Tora wished he could retreat into one himself, but as senior ambassador, appearances had to be maintained. Ambassador Harper, Council Leader Czar Quinn said, voice pitched to project calm authority, your emotional display is being noted in the official record. This isn't helping your case. Harper laughed, not the polite, diplomatic chuckle they'd heard from her over the past months of negotiations, but something raw and genuine that made several delegates flinch. That's the problem with you, Czar Quinn. You think this is an emotional display? She pointed at her own face. This? This is just me talking without the filter. The actual emotional display hasn't even started. Delegate Krillvox's antennae were now completely flat against her head, a sign of extreme distress in her species. Ambassador Harper, please. Think of the diplomatic repercussions. "Oh, I am," Harper replied, casually leaning against the speaking podium. "I'm thinking about them very clearly. You want to know something fascinating about humans? When we are being polite, our thinking actually gets fuzzy. We hold back, we second-guess, but when the politeness comes off—" She snapped her fingers, the sound cracking through the chamber. Crystal clear thought. "It's evolutionary. Fight or flight and all that." Vex-Tora watched as Harper's entire demeanor transformed. The careful posture of a diplomat was melting away, replaced by something more primal, more confident. Her gestures became larger, her voice more dynamic. It was as if they were seeing a completely different person emerge. "Let's look at what just happened here," Harper continued. "You have denied humanity membership based on cultural observations so flawed they'd be laughable if they weren't so dangerous. You have ignored our scientific contributions, our military support during the Void Swarm crisis, and our good faith negotiations." She began to pace, and Vex-Tora noticed how several guards tensed, hands moving subtly toward weapons. Harper noticed too and smiled at them, not the diplomatic smile, but something predatory. "Don't worry, boys. I'm not going to attack anyone. That's not how this works." "How what works, exactly?" Zar Quinn demanded, all pretense of calm now abandoned. "The politeness switch," Harper explained, as if talking to a child. "See, when humans turn off polite mode, violence is actually way down on the list of possible responses. What comes first is brutal honesty. So let me be brutally honest with you, Council Leader." She stepped closer to Zar Quinn's elevated platform, ignoring the warning beeps as she crossed security boundaries. "Your decision is garbage. It's not based on genuine concern for emotional transparency. It's based on fear. You are terrified of humans because we contain multitudes you can't comprehend." "That's quite enough." Zar Quinn's voice boomed through amplifiers. "I'm just getting started," Harper shot back. "Let's talk about the real reason behind this decision. Resource competition. Earth controls 70% of the galaxy's quantum communication networks. We have got the best terraforming technology, and our military, while small, has proven remarkably effective against threats your combined forces struggled with." The chamber had gone so quiet that Vex-Tora could hear the slight buzzing of Krillvox's wings, an involuntary stress response. Harper was naming the unnameable, the political calculations behind diplomatic decisions that were supposed to remain unspoken. "This isn't about our emotions," Harper continued. "It's about power. You are using our emotional instability as an excuse to keep humanity sidelined while you figure out how to replicate our tech." Zar Quinn's skin was changing colors rapidly, flashing from iridescent blue to angry purple. "These accusations are outrageous." "Are they?" Harper pulled up data on her pad, projecting it onto the main screen. "Here's an interesting correlation. Every time humanity has shared a technological breakthrough, the Council has raised a new cultural concern about our readiness. 6 times in the past 3 years. What an amazing coincidence." Vex-Tora felt a growing sense of dread. Harper was dismantling decades of careful political maneuvering in minutes. Worse, she was doing it with facts, uncomfortable, undeniable facts that the Council had carefully avoided examining directly. "Ambassador," Vex-Tora said cautiously, "perhaps we could discuss these concerns in a smaller committee." "No more committees, Vex-Tora," Harper said, not unkindly. "No more private meetings where nothing gets resolved. This happens right here, right now, in front of every delegate." She turned back to address the entire Council. "You know what's really ironic about this situation? Humans developed polite mode because we thought it would help us integrate better with galactic society. We studied all your cultures, learned your communication styles, modified our behavior to make you comfortable. And you are using that consideration against us." Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. Vex-Tora could see Harper's words landing with uncomfortable precision. Let me tell you what happens next, Harper continued, her voice now deadly calm. I'm going to leave this chamber today, and I'm going to contact Earth. I'm going to recommend that we immediately suspend sharing of all quantum communication technology. I'm going to suggest we review our military support agreements for the Proxima colonies. And then I'm going to propose that humanity begins seeking bilateral agreements with individual species rather than working through this council. The chamber erupted. Delegates leapt to their feet, shouting questions and objections. Tsar Quinn was frantically trying to restore order, all 6 of his eyes wide with alarm. Harper stood perfectly still in the center of the chaos she'd created, watching with an almost curious expression. Tora realized with a jolt that she wasn't angry anymore. She was calculating. The emotional display had been strategic, a controlled burn rather than an explosion. As the noise reached a crescendo, Harper simply raised her hand. Remarkably, the chamber fell silent. That was just a preview of what happens when one human turns off polite mode, she said quietly. Imagine what would happen if all of humanity decided to stop being polite at once. She let that thought hang in the air for a moment. Humanity doesn't need to wait 50 years to develop emotional regulation, Council Leader. We mastered that skill millennia ago. What you are seeing isn't lack of control. It's me choosing to show you exactly how controlled I can be. Vex Tora watched in fascination as Harper smoothly transitioned back into her diplomatic persona, posture straightening, expression softening, voice returning to its measured tone. It was like watching someone put on a mask, except now everyone could see it for what it was, a courtesy, not a necessity. I will give the Council one standard day to reconsider its position, she said pleasantly. During that time, I suggest you review the actual data on human diplomatic interactions rather than relying on sensationalized cultural reports. With that, she gathered her materials and walked calmly toward the exit. Just before leaving, she turned back. Oh, and Council Leader? The next human you meet might not be as patient as I am. We are not all like me. She smiled that diplomatic smile again, but now every delegate could see the predator behind it. Some of us are much worse at staying polite. The doors sealed behind her, leaving the council in stunned silence. Vex Tora looked around at his fellow delegates, seeing the same realization dawning on each alien face. They had gravely misunderstood humanity, and they now had less than 1 day to figure out how to fix their mistake. This is unprecedented, outrageous, a complete violation of council decorum. Tsar Quinn's 4 arms gestured wildly as he paced the emergency session chamber. Only the highest-ranking delegates had been admitted to this crisis meeting, and the tension was thick enough to cut with a molecular blade. Vex Tora sipped a calming solution through his exosuit's nutrition port. With respect, Council Leader, I believe focusing on the breach of decorum is missing the larger point. And what point would that be? Tsar Quinn snapped, all 6 eyes blinking asynchronously, a sign of extreme agitation in his species. That Ambassador Harper just demonstrated exactly why our assessment of humanity was flawed, Vex Tora replied. We accused them of unpredictable emotional volatility, yet what we witnessed was precisely controlled communication designed to achieve specific diplomatic outcomes. Delegate Mistook wobbled nervously, his gelatinous form rippling with stress patterns, but she threatened us. She practically declared economic warfare. Did she, though? Krillvox asked, her antennae now uncurled as her initial fear gave way to analytical thought. She outlined potential consequences of our decision, consequences that, frankly, any of us could have predicted if we'd bothered to game out the scenario. The chamber fell quiet as the delegates considered this. Vex Tora pulled up the meeting records on his data terminal, replaying Harper's outburst with professional interest. Look at her vital signs during the confrontation, he noted, displaying the security system's biometric readings. Heart rate elevated but steady. Respiration controlled. Stress hormones increased, but within normal parameters for her species. This wasn't someone losing control. This was a calculated diplomatic maneuver. Tsar Quinn collapsed into his ceremonial seat, skin fading to a dull gray. Are you suggesting she planned this response? Not necessarily planned, Vex Torah mused. But she certainly leveraged the moment when it presented itself. And most importantly, she did exactly what we claimed humans cannot do. She expressed genuine emotion while maintaining complete functional control. Senior Delegate Grozak, who had been silently watching from the shadows, finally spoke. The ancient reptilian's voice was like gravel being crushed. We have made a serious miscalculation. The humans don't lack emotional regulation. They simply operate with different parameters than we do. Different and potentially dangerous, muttered Mistook. Different and extraordinarily effective, countered Grozak. Consider what Ambassador Harper accomplished in less than 30 minutes. She disrupted our entire agenda, forced an emergency session, exposed political maneuvering we have spent years concealing, and established a clear leverage position for renegotiation. Krillvox's wings buzzed thoughtfully, all without a single threat of violence. Without even raising her voice beyond conversational levels. And now we have less than 18 hours to formulate a response, Tsar Quinn said miserably. Vex Torah's communication unit chimed. He checked the message and felt his 3 hearts skip simultaneously. That timeline may have just shortened considerably. Earth's central government has issued a statement expressing concern about the Council's decision. They are requesting that all human ships and personnel throughout Council space prepare for potential return to Earth territories. The chamber erupted again in alarmed chatter. Tsar Quinn had to pound his ceremonial staff 4 times to restore order. They wouldn't really pull out of Council space, Mistook said, though his form was now quivering so violently that small droplets were separating from his main body mass. The economic disruption would harm them as much as us. Would it, though? Grozak asked quietly. Humanity has maintained remarkable self-sufficiency, even while integrating with galactic trade. They produce 90% of their own food, generate their own energy, and maintain independent manufacturing for all essential technologies. Vex Torah nodded. Meanwhile, 37 Council worlds now depend on human quantum communication technology. The Proxima colonies are defended primarily by human military vessels, and 6 major trade routes rely on human navigational systems. They have made themselves essential while we weren't paying attention, Krillvox realized aloud. No, Grozak corrected. We were paying attention. We just focused on the wrong things. We were so concerned about their emotional expressions that we failed to notice their strategic positioning. Tsar Quinn's color was gradually returning as he processed this information. So what do we do now? Simply capitulate to their demands? That would make the Council appear weak. The Council already appears weak, Vex Torah said bluntly, embracing a bit of human-style directness himself. Ambassador Harper exposed that weakness. Our choice now is whether to address it honestly or continue the pretense. A new alert flashed across the main screen. Vex Torah read it and felt a chill run through his cooling tubes. It seems humanity is not waiting for our day to expire. Human merchants throughout the Orion Arm have begun suspending transactions, citing system maintenance. Human diplomatic staff on 12 worlds have requested temporary leave for consultation, and their military vessels in the Proxima sector have initiated what they are calling routine exercises that effectively create a defensive perimeter around their primary installations. They are positioning for withdrawal without actually withdrawing, Grozak said, with something that sounded almost like admiration, another demonstration of control, showing us the consequence without fully executing it. Tsar Quinn sank deeper into his chair. We have seriously misjudged these people. Yes, agreed Vex Torah, but perhaps not for the reasons we initially thought. The problem isn't that humans are too emotional or unpredictable. The problem is that they are far more strategic than we gave them credit for. Krillvox's antennae twitched in the pattern that indicated a new idea. What if that was the point all along? What if humans developed this polite mode specifically to make other species underestimate them? The chamber fell silent as this possibility sank in. Impossible, Mistook finally said. That would imply a species-wide deception spanning their entire contact with galactic civilization. Not deception, Grozak corrected. Strategy. There's a difference. Vex-Tora found himself nodding. Consider Earth's history. They developed in isolation on a planet with extreme environmental variation and thousands of competing cultures. They had to become masters of adaptive behavior just to coexist with each other, let alone with alien species. So what do we do? Zar Quinn asked, all pretense of confident leadership now abandoned. Vex-Tora stood up. I suggest we do something unprecedented. I suggest we turn off our own version of polite mode and engage with humanity honestly. We admit our miscalculation, acknowledge their strategic position, and negotiate in good faith. The Council has never admitted error, Mistook protested. Then perhaps it's time we learn from humanity's example, Vex-Tora replied. They have shown us that controlled authenticity can be more effective than rigid diplomatic protocol. Zar Quinn was quiet for a long moment, his skin cycling through a range of colors as he processed this advice. Finally, he looked up. Contact Ambassador Harper, he said. Request her immediate return to the council chamber. He is, but not for a formal session. He hesitated, then added, invite her for what humans call a candid conversation. As the delegates dispersed to make preparations, Vex-Tora found himself experiencing an unfamiliar emotion, something like anticipation mixed with respect. For the first time in his long diplomatic career, he wasn't entirely sure what would happen next. And somehow, that uncertainty felt like progress. Ambassador Harper returned to the council chamber exactly 3 hours after her dramatic exit. This time, however, the room had been transformed. The formal seating arrangement had been replaced by a circular configuration without the usual hierarchical elevation for senior members. The environmental settings had been adjusted to Earth-standard comfort levels rather than the council compromise that subtly favored the biology of longer-standing members. Vex-Tora noticed these details with approval. Zar Quinn had taken the suggestion of honesty seriously. Ambassador Harper, Zar Quinn greeted her, rising from his seat. His formal robes had been replaced by simpler attire, another symbolic gesture. Thank you for returning on such short notice. Harper surveyed the room, taking in the changes with a quick, assessing glance. Interesting redecorating, council leader. Almost feels like you are trying to make a human feel at home. That is precisely the intention, Zar Quinn confirmed. Though I suspect you are too observant to be swayed by mere environmental adjustments. A small smile played at the corner of Harper's mouth. They are appreciated nonetheless. Symbolism matters in diplomacy, as we all know. She took the offered seat, posture relaxed but alert. Vex-Tora found himself studying her with new eyes. Was this the diplomatic mask, the polite mode they'd discussed? Or was this the real Penelope Harper? Perhaps the most unsettling revelation was that both could be true simultaneously. I assume this isn't a standard council session, Harper said, glancing around at the reduced number of attendees. No, Zar Quinn confirmed. This is what my advisors have suggested we call a candid conversation. I believe humans value these. We do, Harper acknowledged. Though I'm curious what prompted this sudden interest in human conversational preferences. Zar Quinn's skin rippled with colors that Vex-Tora recognized as indicators of discomfort and resolution. Your demonstration earlier today has prompted significant reconsideration of our position regarding humanity. My demonstration? Harper repeated, eyebrows raised. You mean when I turned off polite mode? Yes, Zar Quinn said. It was educational. A laugh escaped Harper, genuine, unguarded. That's one way to put it. And now you want to what? Negotiate more favorable terms? Try to walk back the 50-year delay without losing face? No, Vex Torah interjected, earning a surprised look from Czar Quinn. We want to understand. Harper turned her attention to him, head tilted slightly. Understand what, Ambassador Vex Torah? Everything we misunderstood before, he replied. This polite mode you described, the strategic control behind what we mistook for emotional volatility. The way humanity has positioned itself within galactic politics while we were busy analyzing the wrong aspects of your behavior. Harper studied him for a long moment, then looked around at the other delegates. You are serious? Completely, Czar Quinn confirmed. The Council has operated for millennia on certain assumptions about diplomatic protocol and behavior. Your actions today challenge those assumptions in ways we cannot ignore. Harper leaned back in her chair, considering this. So this isn't about our membership application anymore. On the contrary, Grozak rumbled from his position at the far side of the circle. It is precisely about your membership, but perhaps not in the way you expect. The ancient reptilian leaned forward, scales catching the light. Ambassador Harper, the Council has existed for over 12,000 years. In that time, we have incorporated hundreds of species, navigated countless conflicts, and established protocols that have maintained relative peace across 3 galactic arms. He paused, fixing Harper with his unblinking gaze. And yet, in less than 3 standard years of interaction with humanity, we find ourselves questioning foundational aspects of how we operate. This is unprecedented. Harper's expression remained neutral, but Vex Torah noticed her pulse rate increasing slightly on his biometric scanner, a sign of genuine interest or surprise. We are curious by nature, she said finally. Humans, I mean. We tend to question systems rather than simply adapting to them. Yes, Krillvox agreed, antennae swaying thoughtfully. And that quality, which we initially mistook for immaturity or rebelliousness, may in fact be your species' most valuable contribution to the Council. Harper's eyebrows shot up. Are you saying? We are proposing, Czar Quinn interrupted, an immediate reversal of our earlier decision. Not merely to approve humanity's membership application, but to create a new position within the Council structure, a role focused specifically on systemic evaluation and innovation. The chamber fell silent as Harper processed this unexpected proposal. You want humanity to be your official critics, she said finally. The species that points out when the Emperor has no clothes. Vex Torah's translation implant struggled with the idiom, but he grasped the meaning from context. In essence, yes, though we would frame it more as institutional evolution catalysts. A slow smile spread across Harper's face, not the diplomatic mask nor the predatory expression from earlier, but something new, something genuinely amused. Only the Galactic Council could respond to having its flaws exposed by creating a formal position for flaw exposers, she said, shaking her head. You realize how bureaucratic that is, right? Perhaps that is precisely why we need humanity's perspective, Czar Quinn acknowledged, his skin shifting to a hue that indicated rueful acknowledgement. Our methods have served us well, but rigidity has consequences. Harper considered this for a long moment. I will need to consult with Earth's central government, of course, and we would have conditions. We anticipated as much, Czar Quinn said. And we are prepared to engage in good faith negotiations. Starting with the immediate rescinding of the membership delay, Harper pressed. Consider it done, Czar Quinn agreed. A formal announcement will be made at the next full council session. Harper nodded, then looked directly at Vex Torah. You know, Ambassador, I believe you were the only one who saw what was really happening today. Vex Torah felt his scales flush slightly with the unexpected recognition. I have studied human behavior extensively. It is fascinating. And now I'm curious, she continued. Does the Council have its own version of polite mode? Some set of behaviors you have adopted to make interactions smoother that might be limiting genuine communication. The delegates exchanged uncomfortable glances. It was Grozak who finally answered. Ambassador Harper, the Council has been operating in what you might call polite mode for 12 millennia. Perhaps it is indeed time to consider switching it off occasionally. Harper laughed, a full, genuine sound that seemed to transform the chamber's atmosphere. Well, I'd recommend easing into it. Humanity had to learn the hard way that turning off politeness completely can have explosive consequences. Then perhaps, Zarquin suggested, humanity's role could include teaching the Council how to navigate this balance, when to maintain diplomatic protocol and when to engage more directly. Cultural exchange as a two-way street, Harper mused. What a concept! Vex Tora found himself experiencing an unfamiliar sensation, optimism about the Council's future. In his centuries of diplomatic service, he had observed countless minor adjustments to the galactic order, but this felt different, fundamental. I believe, he said carefully, that we may look back on today as a pivotal moment in Council history. The day we began to evolve beyond our own limitations. Harper looked at him with newfound respect. That's surprisingly philosophical for a Council diplomat, Ambassador Vex Tora. Are you sure your polite mode is still fully engaged? For the first time in his long career, Vex Tora allowed himself to respond with complete honesty without filtering through diplomatic protocol. Perhaps not, Ambassador Harper. And I find I don't mind at all. As the impromptu session continued, developing into a genuinely open exchange of perspectives, Vex Tora reflected on the strange chain of events that had brought them here. The Council had feared humanity's emotional unpredictability, only to discover that the real danger lay in their strategic adaptability and willingness to challenge established systems. And perhaps, he thought as he watched Harper laughing at something Krilvox had said, that wasn't a danger at all, but precisely what the galaxy needed. Sometimes it took someone turning off polite mode to show you truths you'd been too polite to see yourself.